Managing diabetes effectively really comes down to making smart food choices, and this is especially true when we talk about fruits. Now, while fruits are generally healthy, some varieties that are high in sugar can actually be quite harmful. They can lead to those dangerous blood sugar spikes and even long-term complications. That's why careful selection is so important for keeping those glucose levels stable and for your overall well-being. So this guide is here to help you navigate through all of that. Top 8 deadly fruits diabetics must never eat. So understanding which fruits can really wreak havoc on your blood sugar is absolutely the first step towards better diabetes management. And while that term deadly might seem a bit extreme, it's important to remember that uncontrolled blood sugar spikes can, over time, lead to some severe and even life-threatening complications. With that in mind, let's dive into 8 fruits that pose a significant risk. 1. Watermelon. First up, we have watermelon. Now, watermelon is often celebrated as that wonderfully hydrating summer treat, right? But for folks managing diabetes, it actually presents a pretty big challenge. You see, its refreshing taste kind of hides an extremely high glycemic index. This means its carbohydrates get converted into glucose really fast. And this quick conversion often leads to a sharp, sudden surge in blood sugar levels, which, as you can imagine, can be particularly dangerous. While watermelon is packed with water and does offer some vitamins, its sugar content, especially if you eat a generous portion, poses a real risk. Even what seems like a moderate slice can trigger an unexpectedly steep rise in glucose. So it's a fruit that calls for extreme caution. For those of you striving to keep your blood sugar stable, it's generally best to avoid watermelon, or if you do have it, make sure it's an exceptionally small, carefully measured amount. Plus, the minimal fiber content doesn't really help to slow down that rapid sugar absorption, which really solidifies its place among the fruits to be wary of. 2. Overly ripe bananas. Next on our list are overly ripe bananas. Bananas are a go-to fruit for many, but their suitability for diabetics really changes quite a bit as they ripen. Those overly ripe bananas, the ones with the brown spots and softer texture, go through a process where their starches turn into simple sugars. This significantly boosts their sugar content and, you guessed it, their glycemic index. So eating an overripe banana can cause a much bigger spike in your blood glucose levels compared to a greener one. The carbohydrate load in a ripe banana is already something to watch, but when it's overripe, it becomes even more of an issue. For anyone with diabetes, this quick rush of sugar can really throw off blood sugar control, making it a tricky choice if you're not careful. While a small bit of a less ripe banana might be okay for some, those very ripe ones, they should generally be avoided to keep those blood sugar levels steady. 3. Pineapple. All right, moving on to number 3. Pineapple. With its tropical sweetness and juicy appeal, pineapple is another fruit that those managing diabetes need to be pretty cautious about. This vibrant fruit is quite high in natural sugars and carbohydrates. That combination can lead to a rapid and significant rise in blood sugar levels. The glycemic index of pineapple is also on the higher side. This means that when you eat it, especially in larger amounts or as juice, it can quickly cause your blood sugar to go too high. Now, pineapple does offer good things like vitamin C and manganese, but for people with diabetes, its strong impact on glucose control often outweighs these benefits. Because its sugars are absorbed so quickly, even a modest serving can be an issue, potentially upsetting carefully managed blood sugar readings. So, if you're dedicated to keeping your glucose levels steady and avoiding complications, it's generally best to severely limit pineapple or even skip it altogether. 4. Mango. Number 4 is mango, often called the king of fruits. Because of its rich flavor and amazing texture, mango is unfortunately considered one of the tougher fruit choices for individuals with diabetes. The main reason for this is its exceptionally high sugar content. Just one mango can pack a serious amount of natural sugars, and that can lead to a quick and significant spike in your blood glucose levels. What makes this even more tricky is its relatively low fiber content when you compare it to its sugar load. As we know, fiber is really important because it helps slow down sugar absorption. Since mangoes don't have much of it, the sugars hit your bloodstream much faster. This combination makes mangoes particularly challenging if you're trying to maintain good glycemic control. Even a small piece can significantly impact blood sugar, so it's a fruit that diabetics are strongly advised to avoid, or at the very least consume in extremely tiny, infrequent amounts to prevent any negative effects on their health. 5. Grapes, red or green. Coming in at number 5, we have grapes, and this applies to both red and green varieties. Grapes are such a popular and convenient snack, aren't they? But they do pose a significant risk for individuals with diabetes. This is because they have a very high carbohydrate content packed into those small servings. What seems like just a modest handful of grapes can actually deliver a surprisingly large amount of sugar, and that leads to a rapid increase in blood glucose levels. Their small size can also be a bit deceptive when it comes to portion control. It's pretty easy to eat more than you intended, which just makes the impact on blood sugar even worse. The sugars in grapes are absorbed quickly by the body, and because there isn't a lot of fiber to slow things down, they can cause noticeable and often unwelcome fluctuations in your glucose readings. So for those of you working hard to manage diabetes effectively, the concentrated sugar in grapes makes them a fruit to approach with extreme caution, or perhaps even avoid altogether, to keep that blood sugar control stable and protect your long-term health. 6. Jackfruit. Next up, at number 6, is jackfruit. Jackfruit is a large tropical fruit that's been gaining a lot of popularity, especially for its versatile texture. However, it can be a problematic choice for individuals managing diabetes, especially when it's eaten ripe. You see, ripe jackfruit is known for its high sugar content, and that can really impact blood glucose levels. While it does have some nutrients, the carbohydrate load, which mostly comes from sugars, is quite significant. What's more, ripe jackfruit often has less fiber compared to its sugar concentration, especially when you compare it to the unripe form that's often used as a meat substitute. This imbalance means the sugars get absorbed more quickly into your bloodstream, and that can lead to those sharp spikes in blood sugar. So for diabetics who are aiming for stable glucose control, eating ripe jackfruit can really throw a wrench in their efforts. It's really important to be aware of its potential to disrupt your glycemic balance, making it a fruit that should be approached with extreme caution, or even largely avoided in a diabetic diet. 7. Chiku, also known as Sapodilla. At number 7, we have Chiku, which is also widely known as Sapodilla. This is a wonderfully sweet and fleshy fruit, but despite its really appealing taste, it's generally not recommended for individuals who are managing diabetes. The main reason? Its extremely rich sugar content. This tropical delight packs a very high concentration of natural sugars, mostly fructose and sucrose, and these can cause a rapid and significant rise in blood glucose levels pretty soon after you eat it. The glycemic index of Chiku is also on the higher side, which adds to its quick impact on blood sugar. Now, even though Chiku does offer some dietary fiber and vitamins, the sheer amount of sugar in each serving often outweighs these benefits for those who are carefully managing their glucose levels. Eating Chiku can make it incredibly challenging to maintain stable blood sugar, and that could lead to hyperglycemia and make diabetes management more complicated. So, it's definitely a fruit that diabetics are strongly advised to avoid. 8. Prunes. And finally, number 8 on our list is prunes. Prunes, which are just dried plums, are often praised for their digestive benefits because they're high in fiber. However, for individuals with diabetes, they pose a real concern due to their highly concentrated sugars. You see, the dehydration process removes water from the plums, and this concentrates everything left behind, including the sugar. This means prunes have a much higher sugar density and glycemic load compared to fresh plums. Eating even a small number of prunes can send a substantial amount of sugar straight into your bloodstream, leading to a quick spike in blood glucose levels. While the fiber in prunes can help slow things down a bit, The sheer concentration of sugar often overpowers this benefit for diabetics. So, despite their other health advantages, prunes are generally seen as a risky choice for anyone needing to maintain strict blood sugar control. They should really be avoided or consumed very, very rarely, and with extreme caution. Other high-sugar fruits to be mindful of. Now, beyond those top 8 offenders, there are several other fruits that really warrant careful attention if you have diabetes, all because of their sugar content. Take oranges, for example. While they're a great source of vitamin C, they can still cause blood sugar spikes if you eat them in large quantities or drink them as juice, especially since juice lacks that helpful fiber. Then there are figs, both fresh and dried. They are notably high in sugar and should be approached with caution. Dried figs, in particular, are very concentrated. And speaking of dried fruits in general, things like raisins, dates, and dried apricots, these are pretty notorious for their high sugar density. That dehydration process really concentrates their sugars, making even small portions quite potent sources of glucose. Now, while these fruits aren't necessarily forbidden, their consumption absolutely must be strictly moderated. We're talking minimal portion sizes, and you'll want to closely monitor their impact on your individual blood sugar levels. It's so important to understand that even fruits that sound healthy can be problematic if you have too much. That understanding is really key for effective diabetes management. Why these fruits are risky for diabetics. So, let's talk a bit more about why these particular fruits are risky for diabetics. The main issue really revolves around how they affect your blood sugar levels. There are a couple of key concepts to understand here: the glycemic index, or GI, and the glycemic load, or GL. High GI fruits are digested and absorbed quickly, and that causes a rapid surge in your blood glucose. Glycemic load, on the other hand, takes into account both the GI and the amount of carbohydrates in a serving, which gives you a more complete picture of the impact on your blood sugar. Many of the fruits we've listed as deadly have either a high GI or a high GL. Another critical factor is the speed of sugar absorption. Fruits that are high in simple sugars like fructose and glucose, especially if they're also low in fiber, release sugar into your bloodstream very, very quickly. Fiber is so essential because it slows down digestion and sugar absorption, which leads to a much more gradual rise in blood sugar. When that fiber is missing, like in many high-sugar fruits or fruit juices, the blood sugar spike is much more pronounced and definitely harder to manage. Safe fruit consumption tips for diabetics. Now, despite all these warnings, it's important to remember that fruit can still be part of a healthy diabetic diet if you use some careful strategies. First and foremost, portion control is absolutely paramount. You'll want to opt for small servings of any fruit, especially those that have moderate sugar content. Secondly, think about pairing your fruit with a source of protein or healthy fat, maybe a few nuts or a dollop of Greek yogurt. This can actually help slow down sugar absorption and lessen the glycemic impact. Thirdly, try to prioritize choosing lower glycemic fruits. Things like berries, cherries, apples, and pears tend to have a gentler effect on blood sugar. And lastly, the timing of your fruit intake can also be beneficial. It's often better to consume fruit as part of a balanced meal, rather than on an empty stomach, as this can help manage your glucose response. And always monitor your blood sugar to understand how different fruits and these strategies affect you personally. And of course, don't hesitate to consult your healthcare provider or a registered dietitian for personalized advice. They can really help you tailor a plan that works for you. So, to wrap things up, navigating your fruit choices is truly vital for effective diabetes management. Being vigilant in selecting those lower sugar, higher fiber options and really practicing portion control can make a huge difference in preventing dangerous blood sugar fluctuations. When you prioritize fruits that support stable glucose levels, you're contributing significantly to your long-term health and overall well-being, especially when living with diabetes. We hope you found this guide helpful. If you did, Please feel free to share it with friends and family who might also benefit from this information. And don't forget to subscribe for more diabetes-friendly tips and nutritional advice. We'd genuinely love to hear from you, so please comment below with your own experiences managing fruit intake with diabetes, or if you have any questions at all.